Looks like
Let's make a final. Yes, I hope so.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes, that's great. That's very good. Okay, so hello and good evening, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you all here on our first webinar on English Vibes. And I would like to extend a special welcome to our special guest of honor, Mr. Robert Brundage, who will be speaking to us today about the ins and outs of the American English. Again, I'm so excited to have you all to participate in our first online webinar by my page English Vibes, and the second page Robert Teaches English, and the other pages like Oxford Language Institute and Suffolk Language School. Now for our speaker, Mr. Robert, who is originally from Sacramento, America. He is speaking to us tonight about some points regarding the American English. أعزائي المشاهدين ومتابعين الصفحة، أهلا بكم مرة تانية على صفحتنا. النهاردة احنا معانا ضيف غالي جدا جدا، أنا حبيت أستضيفه معانا على الصفحة. هنتكلم معاه وهنسأله على أسئلة كتيرة جدا جدا متعلقة بالأمريكان إنجلش. احنا كتير قوي اتكلمنا قبل كده على الأكسنس واللهجات المختلفة للإنجلش، ولكن يعني الناس اللي حضرت معانا اي كورسز قبل كده او المهتمه باللغه بشكل عام اكيد بتسمع عن الامريكان انجلش، واكيد في مس اندرستاندينج كتير وحاجات احنا عايزين نعرفها. حاجات كتير انا قلت لكم عليها وحاجات تانية اكتر هنسمعها من النيتيف سبيكر اللي موجود معانا او من الجست بتاعنا مستر روبرت. Hello and welcome you again, Mr. Robert.
Hello again, Amar. Nice to be here.
Thank you very much. We are very glad to have you among us today. And let's say that you are the tour leader today in our journey. Okay.
All right.
And you will guide us and tell us about the American accent.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Where should we
That's
begin?
Great. So we may all speak English, right? But different accents. We use different accents and different vocabularies. So we would like you to tell us about the key sounds or the main sounds that differentiate the American English from the other accents all over the world.
Well, I'll do my best. As I'm sure you know, even within the United States itself, there's a variety of different accents and even some different dialects. But
that's true.
I will give you my California accent version. And we might talk about some other things as well when we get into talking about the vowels.
That's great. It's very nice to hear about that. So this means that you have different vowels from the other accents.
I would say that vowels are probably one of the biggest differences when you're talking about like American English or a United States accent versus a British accent or an Australian accent. Yeah.
That's great. And what makes the American English different from, let's say, the British English?
Well, we could get into some specifics. Did you want to talk about some of the pictures you were showing me earlier, or did you want to get into the vowels?
No problem. Let's get to the vowels, talk about the vowels.
Okay.
If you like.
Well, we could just go through them. So I'm going to break it down into 15 common vowels. And are you familiar with like long vowels and short vowels?
Okay. Academically, of course, I'm familiar with that. But let's introduce that to the other speakers who are not interested in the academic side. Okay. And let's simplify the whole process. that we have two types of vowels?
Yeah, I'll break it down into the long vowels and short vowels. This is the most common way that beginners will learn. The long vowels are going to relate to a letter in English. So you might have heard the vowels in English are A, E, I, O, and U. So
amazing. Yes, amazing. Our teachers told us about this from the beginning.
So if a vowel is called long, it simply means that the vowel is saying its own name, which means an A sounds like A. Some examples would be the word able. I am able to speak English. Putting it in the middle of a word, you have something like wait, please wait. Or it could come at the end of the word, hey, how are you doing? Hey. So there's the long A sound, and that's how that sounds in American English. Then you have E, which again, if it's a long vowel, it sounds like E in words like eat or feel or fun. A lot of adjectives ending in Y will have that E sound at the end. He's a very funny man. Funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And then you've got the long O sound. And this is one in particular that I think is different in British English and Australian English.
The O sound.
The O sound. So technically, this is what we would call a diphthong for some more advanced learners. Actually, the long A sound is also a diphthong. This is also referred to as a sliding vowel, but it means that you start with one sound and you sort of move into the other sound. But,
so a diphthong is mixing two vowels, two sounds.
Two vowel sounds. You start with one and you sort of glide into the other one. So the long O sound, you can watch my mouth. You'll see that it starts or her, oh. And I close my lips like I'm getting ready to blow out a candle. Oh. So in American English, you're going to get that long O sound in words like only, or in the middle of a word, something like hope. Or at the end of a word, you could have row. I'm going to row my boat. And when I hear British English speakers especially, they do something that's really hard for me to reproduce with the long O's. It sounds like, I, like, it's really hard to say because I don't say it like that. So it's like they go to this more like closer to an E sound almost. So, and there's like,
they tend to add extra I sounds.
There's like a almost a Y sound as well, like so.
Yeah.
And it's not all British accents, and sometimes it's stronger than others. But I've noticed in British and Australian English, there's like this. So what are we go? Yeah, it's again, it's hard for me to do it because I'm not British. But that's certainly a difference that I've noticed. Have you spoken with many native British English speakers and heard similar things?
Yes, I spent with some of them for about 3 years, but I found it very difficult to master or to copy that accent because, like you said now, it is hard for me to say oi, like oiva, like oi. So it's the oi sound, one of the most difficult sounds that I found while speaking with some British speakers, unlike the American English, which I found easier than that British accent.
And we will get into a sound that's more similar in a minute here. So far, of the other vowels that I've mentioned, is there any difference that you notice between British English and American English?
Until now, no, actually.
Okay.
I noticed only one thing. It's our biggest mistake as Arabs when we speak English and we use or we produce the O sound, we don't pronounce it the same way like you pronounce it. So some of the students and the learners say go instead of go. Okay, they tend to say so instead of so. So I think today is a great chance to hear you and to see the way, the mechanism that you produce the sound on your lips.
Yeah, let me make a note, because it sounds like the issue there for those native Arabic speakers is that they're starting with a different vowel sound. So instead of oh, you want to start more with the sound. With your mouth more open. Sounds like the mispronunciation you were mentioning is starting with more of an sound. So I'll take a quick note, because we're going to get to that vowel sound as well. There we go. Did you want me to continue?
Yes, of course.
All right. So we're getting into the long U sound now. Now this one's a little interesting, because it's not technically just a vowel sound. You're actually mixing the consonant Y sound, with oo, you.
Okay. An example?
We have like the word youth. A very youthful person, or just even you is an example. In the middle of the word, you could say Amar is very cute. So you have that U sound in the middle. Or even though this is two words, they're commonly said together. So hearing it at the end of a phrase, thank you. Thank you. So again, it starts with the Y sound, and then you go into oo, you.
Right.
Yeah.
You.
And again, these are the long vowel sounds. They say their own name. Finally, we have the long I sound, which just sounds like I, and words like eyelid, or in the middle of a word, something like pipe or might or fight. You've got the long I in there. I is also a diphthong. You'll notice my mouth. I.
That's a great I.
And in most of these, you're going to have an open I. Your mouth will be more open, and it'll become more closed. And when I say the long I sound, if someone's having trouble with this particular one, I always think about smiling at the end. If you're not able to smile at the end, you're not doing it right. I am smiling.
Mr. Marco Emil is saying hi to you, Mr.
Oh, hi. Perfect. Perfect example.
Welcome you, Mr. Marco. Welcome you.
Hi. Oh, I see him. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Okay. So what else? Oh, yes. Or at the end of a word, like hi or apple pie. Of these 5 long vowels, are any of them, other than the long O, do any of them trouble you at all, or did you have trouble with these particular sounds as a native Arabic speaker?
Surprisingly, they are very, very easy, and our Arabic sound system can contain those sounds. We can produce those sounds without any problems at all. What other sounds are interesting or are distinguishing the American English?
Well, let's move into the short vowels. These ones, I think, personally, I think are more difficult based on, depending on what your native language is, but a lot of students I've worked with have had more trouble with short vowels. So let's start with what we call short A. This one in particular is really hard for a lot of people because it doesn't exist in most other languages. So in American English, the short A sound is an ah.
Yes.
Yes. And this is another sound that's going to change a little bit depending on what part of the United States you're from. the big clue, I think, or the big thing to focus on for people who don't have this sound in their native language is that it's it's more open and more like nasally than you think, and you really just need to go for it. A lot of people will accidentally say ah or but you want to really open your really open your mouth and get uncomfortable until you feel comfortable saying it. Then you can relax a little bit. But we have that in words like ask. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question.
Of course you can.
Yes, can. Of course you can. That's in the middle of the word. That's a good one. And this is certainly different in British English. How would you, if you were thinking about the word cat, how do you think a British person might pronounce the word cat?
Oh, impossible. I think they would say cut. Man, you're a good man.
Now that sounds almost Jamaican, like the Jamaican accent. Yeah, so in British English, this short A sound is going to be a lot closer to what we would call a short O, which we'll get into in a moment. As far as words that end in the short A sound, I was having trouble thinking of any other than when we imitate a sheep. Do you know what we say in American English when we imitate a sheep? We say
I can bah.
Yeah, so that's the only example I could think of for that.
But unfortunately, we don't have that sound in Arabic.
See, so that's what I thought. This is one that most other languages don't have. So based on what I've said so far, does that help clarify the short A, or did you want to talk about it any further, since this is one that doesn't exist in Arabic?
As you like. It's up to you. It's up to you. Yeah.
It's hard for me to gauge if you're understanding what I'm saying or if it's helpful the way that
Yes, of course. You know, while I'm watching you now, I think it's very easy to copy this sound. So I can repeat after you. It's ask, answer, can.
Yeah. Yours sounds great. Yeah.
So it's not difficult or hard anymore to produce this sound. And I hope that everyone who's watching us right now can realize that it's very easy, especially for the Arabic speakers. Anyway, I would like to welcome Vivian, Marco, Nelson, Ahmed. I think Ahmed is an Arabic name. Okay, welcome you, Ahmed.
Is it? Yes. How would I pronounce that? Because that would be the short A in English, but how would I say that in
Arabic?
Ahmed?
In Arabic, this sound doesn't exist in English. It's ayn, like it's Ahmed. Yes, Ahmed. And my name is Ammar. Ammar. Yes. We like homophones, two homophone words. Awesome. The same sound, I think. Yes. So since this sound doesn't exist in American English, okay, as you see, Marco said Ahmed. Yes. And since this sound doesn't exist in English, so it will be difficult for any American native speaker for the first time to copy that sound. But you repeat it after me, so you got familiar now with Ayn sound.
And it's real quick, one more time. Ahmed. Interesting. So that second vowel sound in Ahmed, it sounds like a mix between what we call the short A, what we just covered, and then the short E sound,
Bingo, you found it. That's great.
So maybe that could be helpful for Arabic speakers, knowing that and is sort of two sides of this vowel that does exist in Arabic.
Yes, that's great. You found it.
Let's get into that then. Let's get into the short E sound, So it is different, or do you have that sound, in Arabic? Like in the word end or head
Mm.
or get.
Actually, we have it. We have it. We have this sound in a few words. Okay. So at first, I would like you to shed more light or illustrate for us the difficulty of short vowels. Why are short vowels difficult? Are they difficult to produce, or are they difficult to realize at first time we hear them in words?
I think they're difficult because they're harder to sustain. They're harder to keep saying at the same time. Again, you don't find most of these at the end of words. Like we can have a word like hey, and we can drag out that long A sound, but you're not going to have a word that ends with ah. So you're not hearing it elongated as much. So I think that could be part of it. Again, specifically with the short A sound, it is difficult because English is one of the only languages that does have that sound. And specifically American English, makes it really bright and very different from some of the other pronunciations of English. End. Again, I think it's just a case of some of these shorter vowels don't exist as often in other languages, but it sounds like it does exist in Arabic, so that's probably not one that's too difficult. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. I agree with you.
Let's move on to the next one, the short I sound. This one, okay, here's another thing. There's a big similarity between the short vowel sounds, which can be difficult. A lot of students have trouble going from a to I because they can sound really similar, especially when you're saying them quickly. So for the short I sound, I always think about this one as when I say it, I really say it. I can look kind of angry and my nose kind of scrunches up. If, hit, wicked, miss. So you try to look kind of angry if you're ever having trouble with the short sound. So does this one exist in Arabic?
This sound, actually, we don't have a sound like in sound. We don't have that very, very short sound in Arabic. Okay, so sound like that doesn't exist. But could you please give us more examples on that sound to cover this sound?
Yeah. Let's see. Let me come up with a quick little scheme here. I hid in his pit. I hid in his pit. I hid in his pit. And again, I think about this sort of little angry face. My nose can scrunch up, and you'll notice my mouth just kind of goes up and down. I'm not smiling at all. I can't say, that's not going to work. It's going to,
But I noticed something great. Could you please repeat your example again, Mr. Robert?
I hid in his pit.
That preposition, in. Some students say it or pronounce it like in.
Yes.
Come in.
So that is a case where you need to practice the long E sound where you're smiling versus the short sound where you're angry. And this is one that some Chinese students can have trouble with, certainly some Spanish-speaking students, because in Spanish, I is E. So it really does make that E sound. So for this one, anytime you're having trouble and you're replacing one sound with the other, you want to use what are called minimal pairs. I'll write that in the chat. And what you can do, I'll try to come up with some, but if there's ever two sounds that you're having trouble with, you can Google or search online for minimal pairs for those sounds, and it'll give you words in which the only difference is that one sound. So for this, it would be helpful to work on words like fit versus feet.
Mm-hmm. But do you ever pronounce it in this? I have one of my colleagues call number. She doesn't say six, number six. She always says six.
Yeah, that would not be the correct pronunciation. Is this a native speaking colleague?
No, an Arabic speaking colleague.
Okay, yeah. So the short I sound is eh. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So
What
that's
about the
next one?
Yes, the next one.
Yeah, so that would be the short I sound, short I. Then short O is going to be the ah sound, ah, in words like offer and walk and not and hot. I'm not going to walk there. It is too hot. That's the short ah sound.
And of course, that's completely different from the British English. If we're going to change these words into British English, they would be very different.
This one is interesting because in British English, there's actually a second ah sound that for most American speakers, it just sounds the same. So let's talk about two words. Let's talk about, actually, we could put them together. You know what a hot dog is?
Yes, of course.
Okay. The short ah sound in hot and the short ah sound in dog, that is completely the same in American English. However,
really,
in British English, and actually many years ago in American English, there was another vowel sound that we used, which is so similar that I have a hard time even hearing the difference, which would be expressed as sort of an AW, ah. So it's like a rounder version of ah, the hot dog. And I don't know if I'm reproducing it correctly, but it's, again, I think of it as a rounder version of ah. I'm
like when you see it.
Oh, yeah. Try to act real fancy when you say that. Oh. Yeah. You're wearing a bow tie. Oh. But again, we don't differentiate that in most parts of the United States. You will still find some people, a lot of older people, who use this vowel sound, this oh. And then also people in certain regions where it'll be more pronounced. But for the most part, we just have the short ah sound, especially for younger generations. That other ah is sort of disappearing in the United States.
Perfect.
Yeah, so those would be two vowel sounds, but mostly just one. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. And I think it's very easy now to produce this sound. It's easier now.
I'm glad. Do those sounds exist in Arabic?
That sound, I think it doesn't. It doesn't. We never produce words with ah sound. As you can see, it seems that this sound is dark, or yes, or very.
Yeah. I hope that's helpful for others who are watching. But
yes, I can see their comments. They are writing something in Arabic.
Certainly,
now.
If you think about short a, that's very bright, and then very dark. I'm seeing a comment from Marco Emil. Mr. Robert, can I pronounce the word water? Yes. Let's talk about water real quick.
That's number one in American English.
We would say water. So you'll notice I'm using the ah sound we just talked about. Water.
Yes,
water. And then importantly, that T does not sound like a T. It sounds like a D. We don't say water. We say water.
Is it slow D or fast D?
Oh, it's certainly a fast D. Water. It's just
Okay,
a flick of the tongue.
Yes.
And then we end with the sound, which I think of as the pirate sound. Are you familiar with pirates? Yes, water.
But you never pronounce, or people in America never pronounce it water. I'm talking if I failed to copy this sound or say it like you said it now. Is it a problem to pronounce it or to call it water?
If you say water, people will understand you, but it'll sound a little strange. Water. I need some water. Yeah, it's very uncommon for someone to actually pronounce that T as a T.
So in other words, you will not sound natural. You will not sound natural.
The only way you might say it like that is if you were trying to emphasize. So if you ordered water at a restaurant, like, could I please have a water? And then they brought you some wine, you could say, excuse me, but I ordered water. I'm very upset now.
Emphasizing.
Yeah, so a lot of words that we reduce and make easier to say, more lazy, we will pronounce them with those hard consonants like water if we're trying to emphasize or if we're just focusing on that word. But that's usually the only time you'll hear them like that.
Okay, so for everybody who's watching us, I think it's easier now to copy some of the sounds mentioned by Mr. Robert. أعزائي أصدقائي كل المتابعين، مستر ماركو وكل المتابعين معانا اللي بيتكلموا عربي، احنا دلوقتي تقريبا غطينا حوالي 5 أصوات. معلش مستر ماركو، احنا مش هنقدر نعمل يعني ممارسة مع مستر روبرت تحديدا، ولكن أنا حبيت وتقدر حضرتك ترجع للديسكريبشن أو التفاصيل بتاعة الويبينار النهاردة، إن احنا نلقي الضوء. أنا بحاول أسأله الأسئلة اللي بتخطر في بالكم، بطلب منه إنه يدي شروحات للساوندز، بحاول أوقفه كل شوية، بطلب منه إن هو يعمل لنا الأصوات، وهنتكلم إن شاء الله على حتة الممارسة ديت يعني، فأرجوك حضرتك تابع معانا. Okay, Mr. Robert, you can go on. We are all ears and listening to you.
All ears. That's a good idiom.
Yes, idioms. We will be talking about idioms today. I hope
so. We'll get back into that. So, I believe we're on the short U sound. Okay, real quick, before we finish that ah sound, a quick trick for the way to think about it. For me, ah is the sound that we use in the United States when we think of an idea. So we say, aha, aha. So if you're having trouble remembering, it's aha. We come up with an idea. Okay. Which is different from which is the short U sound in words like under or but. I want to go under, but I must, yes, I must wonder if I can go under. So it's an sound. And if the short O is coming up with an idea, aha, the short U sound is what we make when we're thinking and we're not sure. What do you want? I don't know. The short U sound is the most relaxed, sort of laziest sound that we have in American English. It's very easy for us to reproduce because our mouth is just sort of hanging open. Just, it doesn't require any muscles in the face. It's, So that's the way I think about the short U sound. Do you have this one in Arabic, Amar?
No, actually. Some of your vowels don't exist here in the Arabic. But while you were talking, I'm sorry for the interruption, but the word, you mentioned the word lazy English. I always hear this. And in formal meetings, I think in writing applications or an interview, they ask the persons or the applicants not to use lazy English. What does it mean of lazy English?
Well, what I'm referring to is lazy pronunciation.
Pronunciation.
Not lazy grammar, not lazy fragmented sentences. I would differentiate.
That's great.
Because if you're using lazy grammar or you're not using full sentences, that is something that is certainly not going to come across as professional. But when you're doing things like saying water, you're not being unprofessional, you're not being inauthentic or formal enough. All sorts of professional people, that's the way they speak. It's just, you would have to speak very slowly, and it would sound really strange if you were to ignore reductions. Things like when we say water, that's called reduced speech. When we take longer phrases or consonants and we change them, like changing a t into a d. And when I say lazy, that's just the way I think about it, because in pretty much any language we do this. We speak in a way that we don't have to use as much energy and that we're not having to move our mouth around as much.
That's great. It's good to know that
if that makes
we
sense.
have something in common now in other languages. Sometimes we use lazy language, not only in American English, but it's in other languages too.
Yeah, if you want to think about it in a more positive way, you could just say economic language or efficient language. We're not wasting energy. We're not wasting movements because we're trying to get our message across and we're trying to flow with the language. We're going to get interrupted by all sorts of hard consonants if we don't.
And some people in some parts in Egypt too, some residents do that.
Yeah. If you don't use reduced speech and if you're trying to pronounce every t and every hard consonant, then you are going to sound very strange. You are not going to sound like a real person. This is not how people really talk. So that's why you want to speak with reduced speech. You want to flow as you speak.
To sound more natural.
Yeah.
So again, I remind the people who are watching us now, dear friends, أعزائي الأصدقاء، لو عايزين نعرف معلومات أكتر وتفاصيل أكتر تقدروا تزوروا صفحة مستر روبرت teaches English. هتلاقوها على الفيسبوك. نقدر نتفرج فيها كمان على فيديوهات وحاجات تعليمية هو عاملها جميلة جدا جدا، هنقدر نستفاد بيها. الموضوع برضو احنا بنتعلم الانجليش مش بيبقى من سورس واحد او من مصدر واحد، بنحاول ان احنا نستخدم اكتر من سورس ونتعلم اكتر من حد. So I'm sorry for the interruption, Mr. Robert.
No worries.
What do you have? Yes. What do you have for now for us?
All right. So that's the end of the short vowels. So just to cover or to review, we went through all the long vowels. A, E, I, O, U. And then we went through what we call the short vowels, which would be a, I, And then one more thing before I finish with Are you familiar with the schwa sound?
The most problematic sound.
Is it problematic?
Yes, academically they told us that.
Okay. So the schwa sound is basically the short U sound, but it's really short. That's the way that I think about it. And the reason it's a sound that people talk about is that it is a sound that is used to replace sounds when we're speaking more quickly, more fluently. In a word like Christmas.
Okay. So explain to us. How
Christmas. The word Christmas is spelled like this, with a with an A at the end. So you would think it's like Christmas, Christmas. But it's not. That A, which should be a short A, is actually an sound, a schwa sound. Christmas, Christmas. So
this
that
means
would be.
This means that English is not strictly a phonetic language.
Certainly not. And even when it claims to be, you have all these spelling rules. But when you talk about the way that words are actually pronounced, it does not follow the spelling rules. So this is why it's really important to listen to native speakers in movies and podcasts and see the way that they're really pronouncing words, because unfortunately, it's not a good example of a phonetic language. You don't have one symbol that equals one sound. And there's a lot of cases where symbols will make all sorts of different sounds.
I hope that everyone watching us now to note down this advice. It's very important. Listen to native speakers. Since some students always ask about learning the rules of pronunciation in English. So English is not like mathematics.
Yeah, some of the rules will be helpful when you're a beginner, but try not to worry too much about them, or try not to think that they're always going to help you. Words like call, for example, you have what should be a short A according to some rules, but then it makes the short ah sound instead. There's another example for you.
Great.
All right, let's move on to the last 4 sounds. So we've got what I call the double O sounds.
Double O.
And these ones get mixed up a lot with some students as well. Tell me if this is a problem in Arabic. So there's 2 different double O sounds. Let me do an experiment. I'll write these words down real quick. And tell me how you would pronounce these words. I'm going to write down 4 words.
Okay.
All right. Can you see them in the chat?
Yes, of course.
All right. So how would you pronounce those words?
Personally, I would say the first one. Students here say that the first one is cool. They make a big mistake. 2 mistakes here. Cool. But for me, I would say it like call.
All right, so that would be a good example of that short ah sound. Can you see the 4 that I wrote after that?
Yes, of course. Beginners always make a big mistake when they say foot. I go to school on foot. But of course, it is pronounced foot. The third one, of course, is the easiest one. But I'm not sure that people always listen to native speakers or not, because they in Egypt here pronounce it good, good, good. They say they always pronounce it like this way, good. But of course, Americans never pronounce it like this way. And instead you say good. That's good.
Yeah, so let's talk about the vowel sounds first, and then we'll talk about the way you're ending that word, because that's interesting as well. So the vowel sounds, as you differentiated, there's 2 of them. The first one, we'll start with words like mood and food and soup and tune. So there's this ooh,
like
and
French.
your lips get really pursed up as if, again, you're going to blow out a candle. Ooh. This is the sound that I think of someone's excited. Ooh, ooh, that's love. Ooh. So that's one of the double O sounds. And it's difficult because you have words that are spelled with the double O that have a different sound. Words like foot, good, and hooves. And instead of an ooh sound, you have an sound. I think of this as the caveman sound. Are you familiar with cavemen, Amar?
Unfortunately not.
So in the United States, in English, we refer to prehistoric people who lived many, many years ago as cavemen because we think, oh, they lived in caves and they just ran around saying, oh, oh, oh. So that's the sound in good or foot.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're saying one of these words that has this vowel sound, remember, you don't want to get too excited. You can't say foot. You're too excited. Ooh, you don't want to get excited about a foot. It is good, but you can't say ooh. So that's how I differentiate between those two sounds. Do you have those sounds in Arabic?
I don't think so, except for some other sounds that you mentioned today. But I'm afraid that these sounds, very, very short sounds, do not exist in Arabic.
Gotcha. So those are the two double O sounds. Did you want to talk about those at all before I moved on to the oi sound?
I wish that we could cover everything that we have settled before the course. So let's move talking about the other sounds.
All right, we'll finish the last two sounds and then maybe we can talk a little bit about vocabulary and idioms and stuff. So
yes, that's great.
Next we have what I would call the OI sound or the oi sound. Oi. This is what you hear in words like boy, toy, oil, soil. And this is also going to be a diphthong where you're moving from one sound to another. Mm-hmm. Oi, oi. And in this one, instead of starting off with a bigger mouth and closing it, so I think we were talking about the long O sound. With a long O sound, your mouth is more open, and then you close it as you move. O. With oi, it's the opposite. You're going to start with a round, and then you're going to move into smiling. Oi, toy, noise. So you're starting with that rounded lip, and then you're moving into a smile. Yeah.
That's very easy.
Mm-hmm. Boy. Oh, boy. Yeah. So when you're finished with the oi sound, you should be able to smile with that long E sound. Oi. Mm-hmm. Mm. And this is the one that I was saying, I think a lot of British and Australian speakers, it sounds almost like they're making this sound when they do the long O.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh no.
But, yeah. you know what I mean? Like, I can't do it justice, but sometimes. All right. And then let's move on to the last one, which is what I would call the OW sound, or ow.
Ow.
Ow. And ow is another diphthong. And similar to O, you're going to start open and move into a closed shape. Ow.
Ow.
It's different from O. With O, you're going to start kind of vertical. So you're making an oval. With ow, your mouth is completely open. And it's like an ah, short A sound. Ow. A short A sound into an O sound. Ow. Ow. This is going to be found in words like down and mouth. My mouth goes down. Ow. Come to my house. Please come to my house now. So that's the ow sound.
It's very easy. Hopefully that the last sounds that you mentioned are the easiest ones. They are the easiest ones to produce.
Good. Yeah, that's the end. Those were the 15 vowel sounds.
in American
Some
English?
lists will include R-controlled vowels, so things like R, ear, air. But I don't really think of those as vowels. I think of those as vowels going into the the R sound. So we're not going to cover those today. I know you wanted to move in and get into some idioms and collocations as well. So maybe in another
Okay.
live stream we could talk about other sounds.
I hope so. Most learners here in Egypt, and I think all over the world, are interested in improving their language, and they think for a long time until they finally decide to start memorizing words, memorizing lists of words, something like the most important 10,000 words in English, the most important 55,000 words in English. Others would say that learning idioms will be more beneficial, and some others would say that learning collocations will be very, very helpful in making your English more natural. So, what do you think?
For me, it's very personal in the sense that the English you should learn first is the English that you're going to be using every day. So a good way to start for a beginner would be to just go about your day and think about what you're saying to people in your native language. Think about things that you're saying over and over again in the same way, and find a good translation for that in English. And learn those phrases first. And I do recommend using learning full phrases or full sentences for those phrases that you're using in your native language. So in that sense, it is very useful to learn idioms and collocations if you can find an idiom or a collocation that matches up with what you're saying, because that would be the more natural way to say it in English. So that would be my advice, especially when you're first starting off, is to figure out what you're saying every day and learn that first, because that way you can just start saying it in English instead, and you're going to get really natural practice happening.
And what's your advice for those students who are upper intermediates or who are preparing for TOEFL or IELTS and looking for improving their English in a different way?
So for those especially who are preparing for more academic things, I think collocations are extremely important, especially when you're talking about collocations that are mixed up with some of the concrete, like the biggest verbs in English, like do and have. So learning the ways that you can use have, like we're going to have a party this weekend, or we're having a baby, or I'm having a good time. Collocations like that are really foundational to the language, I think are certainly important to learn if you're in that intermediate to advanced level. And idioms as well. However, I would still say with idioms especially that you should try to find idioms that apply to your life. And be careful about learning idioms from books and from videos online, because a lot of videos that I have seen will teach idioms that we don't really use, or that are old, we don't use anymore. For example, it's raining cats and dogs. It's a very common idiom that many English learners will use, but native speakers, I don't know if I've ever heard a native speaker say that before. So if your goal is to actually sound like a native speaker and have more natural conversations with native speakers, those sort of idioms are not going to be helpful. I mean, it's not going to hurt. You're not going to offend anybody or embarrass yourself, but you'd be better off learning idioms that actually make sense and that people are using more commonly. And more importantly, that will apply to your life.
And I think this will lead us to the other issue, which is learning the formal or informal English. some people, when they start learning English, they're not aware with this point. They learn any kind of English, regardless formal or informal English.
Well, it depends entirely on your goals. If you're a student and you need to write papers and you need to communicate with professors or even take the TOEFL, for example, you certainly want to study formal English because you're going to be tested on it, unfortunately, even though I don't think it's a good system to expect students to learn things that native speakers don't actually do. But again, unfortunately, it's part of what I would refer to as the game. You're playing this academic game where you're following these academic rules that real native speakers don't follow, but you have to do it because you're going through this system, and it's not a perfect system. It's an imperfect system, and if you're going to play the game, you have to follow the rules. So that's my point of view. If your goal is to communicate with native speakers and to live in a native speaking country, then informal English is certainly the way to go. You're going to have more natural conversations that way.
Well, that's great. And again, I repeat my introduction, which is that we may all speak the same language, English, but we have different accents and we speak with different vocabulary. So I think I prepared some pictures here, and I would like to ask Mr. Robert about how people in America call these words, since these words are in American English and British English, but they have different meanings or different words, which is called, I think, dialect or accent, Mr. Robert.
For the different words?
Yes, of course.
Typically, when you're mixing vocabulary and accent, you're moving into dialect territory.
Dialect territory.
Yeah. Although if you're talking to a linguist and you're talking about strict linguistics, there needs to be a very large difference in the vocabulary for it to be considered a different dialect. So I think the difference between British and American English would certainly be big enough to call it a different dialect. Yeah.
But before I start talking about this exercise, I forgot to ask, for non-native speakers who are interested in learning and speaking English appropriately, which accent do you recommend for non-native speakers? I know you're an American, Native American, but what do you think?
I think it will, again, depend on you personally. There's a couple different ways to go about it. Number one, you can choose the accent that you think is more fun, more interesting for you to use. Because if you're having fun and you're enjoying yourself, it's a lot easier to learn. So have you heard of something called the language ego?
Yes.
Okay. So for students who may not know about this, when we learn a new language, there's something called the language ego, where we sort of have to become reborn and we have a new personality in that language. So in a sense, we have to act. If you really want to pronounce things correctly, or if you want to try to sound like a native speaker, you have to play a character almost. So in your mind, if you're more comfortable with a character who is from Britain and speaks with a British accent, then do that, because it's going to be more natural for you to do so. But if in your mind your character has an American accent, or your character's from California, then go with that one. That would be my the first thing I would say. If you don't care one way or the other, I would say choose the accent that has phonemes. Phonemes are sounds that has sounds that are more similar to your native language. So like you were saying, with a British accent, that long oh, that sound, if that's difficult for you, go with the American accent, because we're just going to say oh, which it sounds like is easier for native Arabic speakers, or at least for you. So I would base it off of one of those two factors.
That's great, and I would like to add that the American English is very common. You can find it everywhere. You can hear it everywhere. You can read it everywhere. Let's watch TV and let's watch Hollywood. I think everything now has become in American English. Okay, so
I would certainly say it's easier to access listening practice for American English just because of Hollywood and all that. Yeah.
And of course, we have Mr. Robert today, and you can visit his page on Facebook. Robert teaches English very often, and to make it as a part of your daily routine for improving your English.
Oh, please do.
We hope so, and we will do, of course, inshallah. Even me. So let's see and let's check the meaning of those words in American English with Mr. Robert. So again, for my dear viewers, I would like you to look and make sure and write in the comments that everything is okay and you can see those pictures right now. So Mr. Robert here, this picture is taken from some of the traditions here in Egypt, especially after Ramadan. We make, or most families in Ramadan or after Ramadan, make those biscuits. What do you call that in American English?
So it doesn't look like you're sharing the picture just yet.
Oh, I am very sorry. So,
after fasting, how long does Ramadan last again?
I think Ramadan is over 1 month ago. It was 1 month ago.
How long is it in total? Is it a full month?
Yes, 30 days.
Yeah.
Stop eating and we stop eating and drinking every day from dawn, almost 3 or 4 a.m. until 7 p.m.
I would certainly be in the mood for some sweets after that as well. I understand.
Yes, of course. It's a tradition. So,
okay.
Hope you can see this picture now.
Yeah, I can see it. So in American English, we would call these cookies.
Yes, that's great. So you call it cookies. We only hear this word when we go to cafes or restaurants and waiters come and ask us if we would like to have some cookies with coffee. What about the taste in American English? Let's find more about the taste. Maybe it could tell us something about the difference between between biscuit and cookies.
Well, this is a huge difference between British and American English because we do have the word biscuit, but a biscuit is completely different. It is not sweet. It is savory.
Savory.
Yeah.
Salty.
It is salty. It is buttery. It's a. Are you familiar? I don't know if the viewers are familiar with croissants.
Yes, of course.
But it's a very buttery bread, layered. So there's a lot of air inside, and it's circular in shape, but it's a very savory, buttery bread that we often serve for breakfast, often with sausage or with a gravy.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot different.
Will you understand me if I say biscuits?
If you said biscuits, I would think about biscuits, the savory. I would not think about cookies at all. So that would certainly be something where you might confuse someone if you used it in the United States.
اوكي زي ما انتم شايفين طبعا دلوقتي انا بحاول اساله دلوقتي على الكلمات اللي موجوده في الامريكان والموجوده في البريتش اللي هي مشكله المشاكل بالنسبه لنا طبعا وبنبقى احنا مختلفين فيها يعني انا عارف ان في ناس ممكن تختلف معايا بالنسبه للامريكان انجلش وشايفين ان البريتش انجلش هو الافضل ولكن زي ما انتم شايفين الكلمات دي كلها بتمر علينا بشكل يومي تمام ولما بتمر علينا بنبقى اكيد احنا مش عارفين هي ديت امريكان ولا بريتش لكن احنا في الحقيقه بنتعلم ميكس من الاثنين وانا حابب ان انا يعني اوريكم برضو واكشف لكم حقائق برضو عن الامريكان. طيب what about the second picture?
Let's take a look. So are we talking about the part where people walk or the street where people drive?
No, the part that people walk.
We would call that the sidewalk.
However, our teachers call it pavement.
Pavement? That's funny. I actually don't know about that one. So pavement, again, we use pavement in American English, but pavement is just the material that the ground is made out of, that the sidewalk is made out of. So it's like it's like the cement almost that you pour is the pavement. So it's the name of that kind of floor, that kind of surface. That's funny. I had no idea about that one.
Yes. طبعا زي ما انتم شايفين انا بساله دلوقتي بقول له على pavement وهو قال لي كمان قال ان هي في الامريكان انجلش بيتقال عليها سايد walk وخليكم فاكرين من walk الساوند اللي هو لسه قايل عليه. I'm sorry, that is our poster. So one more picture.
So this would be a swimsuit.
Okay, some of us will say swimsuit too, but for our primary or preparatory students, I think they would call it swimming costume.
Yeah, so I've heard this one before. This one would sound a little funny in the United States because when we talk about a costume, we're talking about clothes or an outfit that you wear when you're not being yourself. So if you were in a play or in a movie and you were playing a different person, you would get into your costume to change who you are. Or if you were celebrating Halloween, maybe you put on your ghost costume or your pig costume and you transform into something else. So to have a swimming costume is
That's
funny
great.
to me because I think as soon as I get into the water, I'm not even me anymore. I'm in my swimming costume.
Marco is asking a question for us. أيوة ماركو أنا معاك. Marco is asking in Arabic. He's asking about the word sidewalk. And again ماركو يا ماركو sidewalk دي هتبقى بالأمريكان English, pavement ده بالبريتش English. ولكن الاثنين بنفس المعنى. كل كلمة هتتقال في البلد اللي مناسبة ليها. يعني في أمريكا هنقول sidewalk، في إنجلند أو في إنجلترا هنقول عليها pavement. أنا بحاول أعرفكم فروقات الكلمات لأن ده شيء مهم جدا جدا يعني بصراحة. I'm sorry for the interruption, Mr. Robert, but I'm trying to translate to the other students who are watching us.
Yeah,
Maybe
no worries.
They are enjoying that.
It's fun to hear you speak in Arabic. It makes me miss my friends. I have some good friends from Saudi Arabia who I haven't seen in a while. Yeah.
Really? Are they here watching us now?
I don't think they are. I invited one of them, but I don't think he came.
And even our
maybe
brothers, even our brothers in Saudi Arabia, they speak Arabic too, but sometimes they don't understand our Arabic in Egypt, and we also sometimes don't understand their Arabic. So this
Do
means
you
that
have a lot of differences in vocabulary? So is it more of a dialect thing, or?
Yes, of course. Sometimes when they speak to us, they use certain words which we don't understand. So, and even with idioms, they have different idioms. Okay, like the American English and the British English. Okay, so Marco is adding a word here. He's telling us about the word flat.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Flat, yes, he's saying that flat is a British word, while apartment is an American one.
Yeah,
that's
he's
good,
right.
Marco. Yes,
good job, Marco.
Right. Another one.
We call this one the highway or the freeway.
The highway, which is mean very high.
The highway is weird, right? I mean, freeway for us, too, but highway, why? Why do we call it the highway? Maybe high speed.
High speed, yes.
That's the only thing I can think of. The freeway is like, I'm free, I'm driving away. Yes. But I think the British American or the British English version makes more sense in this case.
Yes, of course, because in the British English, they call it motorway, motor, because of motors. And regarding your expression, high speed. So this is a collocation, right? A collocation in English in general.
I suppose it is, yeah. If you're talking about a high speed, then it means a faster speed, whereas a low speed would be a slower speed. Yeah.
The interesting part here is that finally Arabic and English share something in common. Really, in Arabic we say سرعة عالية, high speed, the same meaning.
That's cool.
We use the same collocation, so we have something in common.
That's really cool to learn.
Yes, I think yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like across the ocean over there, where you guys speak Arabic, there's not as many things in common, like collocation-wise or idiom-wise. Whereas with our neighbors down south in Mexico and South America, there's a lot of crossover where we will share similar idioms and similar collocations as well, even like proverbs.
That's a great. Again, Marco, don't say that, Marco. You're almost welcome, and today we are here to answer some of your questions. So no need to say that you are disturbing us. We are enjoying this.
Yeah, it's fun. So, talk to us.
Yes. One more picture.
All right. This would be a bathroom.
Bathroom.
Where some people, especially in the East or the Midwest, might call it a washroom.
Oh, that's why it is. The short for this word is WC. WC. We always ask, where does this abbreviation come from? WC. What does W refer to? What does C refer to?
Well, now I'm wondering what the C refers to, because washroom.
What?
Oh no! Well, at least we found out what the W stands for.
That's great. However, sometimes we call it a toilet. A toilet.
That's what they called it in. I lived in Thailand for a while, and people who would speak in English would say the toilet. And I wish I could circle, but the part that you actually use if you need to pee, then that would be the toilet itself.
Toilet.
So
in Egypt we call it combination. This part is called the combination toilet. Combination toilet.
For this might be a good one to know the difference if you're traveling in the United States.
Important.
Okay, yeah, because if you say toilet, it's almost a little bit gross. Or you wouldn't want to say it like at a dinner party or at a restaurant, because when you say, I need to go to the toilet, they think immediately of the thing that you use. And it puts an image in your mind, so it's a little bit gross. Whereas if you say, where's the bathroom? It sort of takes that image. Yeah, it takes the image out of your mind. It's a little more polite. And then, you could say, okay, yeah, who knows? You're going to go in there and check your hair. It's, but it's kind of, it's a bit silly, but I would say definitely you want to say bathroom or washroom if you're in the United States. By the way, I just found out what WC is for. This is really weird. So it stands for water closet.
Yes, Scott Reynolds has commented here.
Yeah.
He said, water closets.
There he is. Yeah. That's a weird one. I actually never knew that before. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you again, Scott. Awesome. Another word here. Yes, this place. Of course, this place is controlled here in Egypt or in the Middle East in general. Okay. But we would like to know about that.
This would just be the liquor store in most places. I know there are some states in the United States where it's more controlled and you can only go there certain days. It might have a different name in those states, but I would just say the liquor store.
Okay, could you please spell liquor?
Yeah. Liquor, liquor. So that would just be the liquor store.
That's a funny Scott.
Yeah, getting some history on the WC water closet.
Yes. So you never say wine shop or wine store.
Oh, well, if it's a wine shop, wine is a very specific kind of alcoholic beverage. It's fermented grape juice, a special kind of grape. So if it's a wine shop, then either they only sell wine, but they usually sell other things, or they specialize in selling wine. So a wine shop would be a store that sells mostly wine, and they have good wine. They have a large variety of wine. That would be a wine shop. Whereas a liquor store will have all sorts of high alcohol beverages. So liquor, compared to wine, liquor is going to be at least 35% ABV usually. That's alcohol by volume to, it goes up.
Okay, let's move to another word.
Yeah, very strong.
Yes, for females. So what does she look like? What is her hairstyle?
The part down here?
Yes, of course, this part.
She's wearing bangs.
Bangs.
Yeah, bangs.
Okay, that's great. However, in some books here in Egypt, it is written French. This means that it is British English. يا جماعة احنا بنتعلم في مصر برضو ميكس ما بين الامريكان انجلش وما بين البريتش انجلش. ده الميكس اللي احنا عايشينه هنا في مصر. اوكي، هو بيقول لنا علينا في امريكا اسمها how do you call it again? Sorry, Mr. Robert. This part?
Yeah, the bangs.
Bangs, yes. طيب, another word. Yes, this one.
Oh, potato chips.
Potato chips. Yes, that's great. Like Arabic, exactly like Arabic. In Arabic, we say shipsi, shipsi. That's how we pronounce it here in Arabic, shipsi. And in America, chips. However, in our books, it is called potato chips. Another word, Mr. Robert.
So all of this would be just candy or sweets.
Great. So we have something in common now, since our books and our teachers call this sweets.
Yeah.
يا جماعة sweets ممكن ماشي، عايزين تقولوها برضو candies برضو مفيش مشكلة، بس خليكم فاكرين sweets تمشي American وتمشي British وcandies American بس.
That one's interesting because I feel that the younger generations, and not very young, like someone under the age of 50 is probably a lot more likely to say candy, whereas sweets is sort of what the older generation would say. So that might be maybe the leftover connection to England. I don't know, but I certainly hear candy more from younger people.
Okay. And I still remember one of my Australian friends who used to call it lollies. Lollies. That's funny.
Oh, those Australians. Now,
yes.
I feel like, if you want to learn British English, learn British English. If you want to learn American English, learn American English. Don't learn Australian English.
How many accents are there in America, by the way? Not accents, dialects.
I mean, it would be hard to say off the top of my head, but there's, at the very least, if we're talking like really distinct, there's at least like 6 or 7 really distinct accents. Let me think. Right off the top of my head, you've got sort of your West Coast accent, which is me. In California, I can't say what it is because I use it, but I know that if you get farther south into Southern California, you're going to speak a little bit slower because, you know, you're like at the beach a lot and you're going to round your vowels a little more, and you might even enunciate a little more because you're just hanging out at the beach. So even in California, you've got different accents because it's such a long state. And then when you get over to the closer to the middle of the country, the Midwest, there's several different accents, but I always go to like sort of the northern, like Minnesota, like the Minnesota accent. Oh, hey, come over. We'll have some beer. I'm going to make some pot roast. So there's a different accent there. And then you can go down south. So there's like the southern accent. I'm trying to think of a good southern. We're going to go southern accent. I guess it depends on what part of the South you're in, but you're going to have all sorts of different accents down in the South as well. You're going to have that southern drawl. And then you go over to the East and you get into New York and you get like Boston, like a Boston accent. So those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. But there's a lot of different accents in the United States. You could say dialects because there are a lot of differences in vocabulary, but I think linguists do not call them dialects because they're not different enough in vocabulary and grammar. A big part of dialect is there's usually even some differences in the way that grammar is used.
That's great.
Yeah.
You know, my dear friends, we will not be able to talk about everything. I have lots of questions in my mind to ask for Mr. Robert. However, we talked and we prepared an outline beforehand. But, you know, I have lots of questions which are popping into my mind. And I would like to ask Mr. Robert about those questions. But I will do my best. But concerning this point that we were talking about right away, I always advise my students and advise those learners who are learning English in their early steps is to select a model, select someone, a person, and start listening to all of his recordings, listen to all of his speeches, okay, and start to imitate him in order not to get confused by the different accents or the different styles of speaking. Am I right, Mr. Robert? Is that good?
Yeah, you don't want to get caught up worrying about perfect pronunciation, especially when you're first getting started. It's a lot more important to try to have real conversations with people and focus on just communicating with people. The only time you should really get hung up on your pronunciation is if it's causing people to not be able to understand what you're saying. Other than that, unless you have some very specific goals, try to not worry too much about it, because as we were just discussing, depending on where you go, even in the United States, people are going to speak with a different accent. Every individual learner is going to have his or her own accent, and we like that. If I meet somebody who's traveling from another country and I talk with them and they don't speak with an accent, I'm going to be disappointed because I want to hear that. I want to hear what they do with certain sounds. It's pretty, it's fun, it makes you unique, and honestly, it's going to make people listen to you more. You're going to have an easier time speaking with people because you sound interesting and you sound unique. So don't be ashamed of your accent. Embrace it and just focus on communicating.
Don't shame of your accent. Just embrace it. Plus, keep your identity. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. Again, Scott Reynolds, Jamaican is a good example of an English dialect.
Yeah. So, yeah, I won't get too much into it, but according, like, the official definition of a dialect includes vast vocabulary differences and grammar differences. So you've got something like Jamaican English. Even in some countries where English is not the official, like, first language, if you get into like Singapore, so many people in Singapore speak English that they have their own dialect of English there. If you get into Philippines, the Philippines has its own dialect. Even within the country, we differentiate between certain groups of people who started as different speakers, and they have their own dialects. But again, that's getting into the official term and getting into linguistics. So that would be for, I guess, people who are more interested in some of the more intricate details of language and what those words actually mean. But I think it's interesting, so it's fun for me to talk about.
That's great. Let's move to another picture. Yes, this picture. We call it Lori.
Lori. Lori is a woman's name. That is a truck.
So again, we are different here. We always know that this word is called Lori, even in Arabic. And I was born in an Arabic country, and in Arabic it is called Luri.
Luri. So that's cute.
Luri, yes, in Arabic. So basically, we can realize that this word is derived from an English origin. So in English, it is called truck or lorry, and in Arabic we call it luri. And
Luri.
For this part, وفي الجزء الأخير, the last part, we can see this part. الجزء ده احنا بنقول عليه trailer, trilla. In Arabic, we say this part is called trilla.
Oh, that's what we would say in American English. So we have a cognate, I believe, in Arabic and American English. That's cool.
That's great. And this kind of shoes.
Those are boots.
Boots. In Arabic, we say that boots too. In Arabic, we say this is boots. I will buy boots. In Arabic, we say this the same meaning or the same word as in English. So as you can see, we have something in common. فلفل ألوان. So, Mr. Robert, what do you think about that?
Those are bell peppers.
Bell.
Yeah, you know bell?
Yes, of course, we know bell.
Ding. Yeah, because they're shaped like a bell. So those specific peppers we call bell peppers, but any vegetable like this that has the seeds inside, some of them are spicy. Those are all peppers.
But unfortunately, they told us, or they taught us, that all kinds of pepper are called the pepper. So they didn't give us any kind of categories for this plant.
Yeah, there's a lot of categories. These are bell peppers, and then a lot of the hotter peppers have their own names. So, and then some of them will also be called chili peppers. Yes, there's a whole category of chili peppers. There's like serrano chili peppers, habanero chili peppers, but I'm not sure how many different peppers have that chili title attached to them. There's a lot going on there.
زي ما انتم شايفين يا جماعه، يعني هو بيقول لي دي اسمها بيل بيبرز. احنا كنا متعودين ان احنا بنقولها بيبرز وبس، ولكن برضه احنا شايفين في امريكان انجلش هي برضه اسمها بيل بيبرز، واحنا كنا بس بنقول بيبرز فقط، ولكن في انواع كثيره فعلا. in Arabic شبشب in Arabic شبشب. معلش انا اسف.
These here are interesting because they have three different things that we call them.
Three?
Flip-flops. I would call those flip-flops or sandals. Sandals is sort of the big category. So these specific sandals are called flip-flops because they have a really small amount of material holding your foot in place. And then some people will call them thongs.
Songs, yes.
Yeah, but I would say I would call these flip-flops personally, but sandals or thongs works too.
That's great. زي ما انتم شايفين يا جماعه، طبعا هو بيوضح لنا ان هي كده اسمها فليب فلوبس، يعني تقريبا زي ما احنا بالظبط اتعلمناها. One more picture, Mr. Roberts.
Ooh, we got some Spanish insight. They would call them chile verde for those peppers. Thank you, Alex Cruz.
Are we receiving the questions? Yes, Spanish words. Sandals. By the way, we call it sandals in Arabic too. Sandals.
Bam! We got another cognate.
Yes, we call it sandal. Sandal in Arabic. Sandal. Oh. You can ask your Saudi Arabian friend, are you wearing sandals today?
They would probably wear sandals a lot. It's so hot up there.
This is part of their tradition. Is that a blanket?
You could call it a blanket, or you could call it a comforter.
Comforter.
Yeah, this specific kind of blanket is like a comforter.
Oh, again, that American sound. Could you please write the spelling of this word, Mr. Robert? We need to learn from you.
So it is a comforter. So it's spelled like it would be or, but it's actually two sounds. Comforter.
Let's see the spelling first. Let's see the spelling.
I have it in the comments here.
Yes. Oh, yes, we have it. So one problem for us, those non-native speakers, when the word is made of lots of letters, lots of syllables. So how can we overcome this problem, the problem of syllables?
Well, I would just break it up. So comforter comes from the word comfort. Are you familiar with comfort?
Yes, of course.
So if you can start with comfort, that would be one way. You could also just start with the word come. So you could start with come. And then
do you think a dictionary will help us? A dictionary will help us?
With pronunciation?
With pronouncing those difficult or long words?
I don't think a dictionary would be the best way in this day and age, since we have the internet and we have videos and we have audio examples. I would go for video instead. If you're having trouble with a specific word, there's a lot of videos where English native speakers will just say the word for you. I actually have some on my YouTube channel. But if you're able to understand the way that the dictionary breaks down words and you don't have access, then, you know, go for it. I don't think it's the most effective way to learn pronunciation.
Surprising to hear that today. Sometimes the dictionary is not effective.
It'll work, but it's not the best choice anymore for pronunciation, especially.
I hope that we can find more alternatives for dictionaries. In other words,
well, you do have things like dictionary.com, which is an online dictionary, and you can click and get an audio example of words there, but a lot of the time it's a strange pronunciation and they'll enunciate things that they shouldn't. So hopefully that will become updated, but in the meantime, you've got online teachers like myself who are putting out videos to help with pronunciation, which I think is really quite useful. Even if I don't have them on my channel, there's so many English teachers and so many good videos that you can find pronunciation advice on.
And the good student, the best one, is the one who will be able to learn from all the resources available to him. That's great. What about this? This is a very confusing word for us here in Egypt. Really.
He's wearing pants.
Pants. Yes.
What's confusing about this one in Arabic?
Because in Arabic we call it bantalon.
Pantaloon.
So it appears bantalon, yes.
I think that might be what they call it in Spanish.
Spanish or French? Pantalon.
I think it might be in Spanish and French. It's in Spanish it would be pantalones. For any of the Spanish-speaking viewers, please correct my pronunciation or if I'm saying it wrong, but I believe it's pantalones in Español. Pero I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's pantalones.
Okay. But in our school curriculums, they are teaching us this word like trousers.
Trousers. We can say trousers. Trousers, I would say, is more commonly used if you're reading like a novel that's set in the medieval times. Are you familiar with the medieval times?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so in a novel like that, they might talk about like, and he wore his tunic and his trousers. That's how we use the word trousers more often in the United States. But if you use trousers to describe pants, I don't think it would be that weird. Everyone would understand what you're saying, so that would be fine.
That's a great. Another word. This place in Egypt we call this supermarket. Supermarket.
Yeah, supermarket.
Mm.
So it sounds like you're taking the unvoiced p sound and turning into a voiced b sound in Arabic. Supermarket.
Yes, we have a great controversy between your p and b, and our only b sound. We call b. Supermarket.
Supermarket.
Yes. In Arabic, we have different sounds from English, of course, and this causes us a big problem when we pronounce words in English in general, like pen. You call it pen, but here in Arabic countries, we call it ben, without being aware of the big mistake that we are making.
Yeah, well, that sound is the exact same sound, except for your b is voiced, which means you use your voice box. B. You'll feel like a little vibration here when you say b.
Mm-hmm.
But the p sound is not voiced. So you could start with a b and sort of go into singing b, but with a p, your voice box doesn't work at all. You're just blowing air. P. You can't. P. It would sound like that p, if you were trying to sustain afterwards. So that's
the correct way.
Yeah. A good way to practice that one is if you have like a tissue. Oh, I have something here. So if you have like a tissue or a napkin and you're trying to practice that one, if you say your b, it's moving a little bit. But if you use the P sound, it's really going to go p. So
yes,
that's a good way to practice that one if you're having trouble with the b versus p.
Thanks a lot for the great help. So again, we call it supermarket or supermarket. What about the American English?
Supermarket or grocery store. Usually supermarket is for a larger grocery store. That's why we say super, because super is like, you know, more, bigger, supermarket.
Oh, wait a minute. I've noticed something while you were pronouncing grocery.
Mm-hmm.
You pronounce it the s sound with sh.
Ah, grocery. Yes.
So, this is common in American English, right?
Yeah. This is actually one where you can pronounce it a couple different ways. So you might hear some people saying grocery, the grocery, depending on maybe different parts of the United States. I think British English might say the grocer, the grocery, but most people, at least like from California, where I'm from, would say grocery. So that C becomes like an SH sound. So it's like grow. Hold on, let me write this in the comments. Grocery, grocery, or just grocery, the grocery store. Grocery. Yeah. For short, I'll say grocery.
So how do you pronounce this question in American English?
Which question? Oh, what is your favorite color?
Yes. This means that you will not say, what is your favorite color?
Ah, yeah. I would say, what is your favorite color? So if I were to translate sort of the reduced speech of it, be what is your favorite color? So I'm trying to type what I think it would look like if it were more phonetic, but what is your favorite color? What is your favorite color?
I've heard one of those American movie stars asking this question like this way. What's your favorite color? Watch.
Oh, well that would just be with what's instead of what is. What's your favorite color? And I wrote favorite with the T, but the T, again, it gets sort of cut off. We cut off our T's a lot of the time when they're at the end. So instead of favorite, it's favorite. And I am putting my tongue on the roof of my mouth at the end there to cut it off. So it's not like I'm saying favorite. I am shutting it off. So there is sort of a T sound. Favorite. Yeah.
Wonderful. And this reminds me of the British English when they pronounce words like hot. I remember one British lady who used to ask me for water. So she kept asking me, hot water, please, some hot water. Hot. Unreleased, hot water.
Yep, exactly. So that's something that would transfer into both British and American English. Although I've also heard British English speakers say, instead of water, they'll say water. Some water. A hot water.
It's very weird. That's very weird.
Yeah.
And a picture like that or a place like that.
This would be, well, I'm seeing certain jungle plants. So if it has certain plants and a lot of plants and it gets a lot of water, we would call it a jungle. But any place with trees like this could be a forest or the woods.
The woods.
Mm-hmm.
I think we only know the only word that we receive here in our education is the woods.
Yeah, I would say for the woods, like I'm going to the woods, you could say I'm going to the woods and maybe it's a small area with some trees. It could be small or it could be larger. But if it's big and there's a lot of it, you would say the forest. You've got a whole forest.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I think this is the all that I have.
Yeah, it's like 10 p.m. over there. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're probably getting tired.
No. Of course, time was running very fast with you.
Yeah, I was having fun.
Yes, we really enjoyed that with you, Mr. Robert. And I would like to thank you very much for spending your time with us. Okay. This webinar couldn't have pulled off without the help and dedication of your work. Mr. Robert responded to me from the first day, and really he helped me to make my idea a reality. I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Robert. I would like to thank all of the viewers who attended this webinar, and I hope that we reflected some of the differences and the common misunderstandings that we have here in the Arab world about the American English. For those who were not lucky to attend or watch our webinars today, you will be able to watch this webinar again on the page on Facebook. And that's it.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
your
very
kind
much.
words, Amar. I enjoyed working with you as well, and I hope we can do another one in the near future, since there's plenty to talk about. And I hope that all the students enjoyed this, and please check out my Facebook page as well, and my YouTube channel if you want to learn more about what I do. But thanks so much.
Of course, we are writing here. You can, dear students, you can find it in the comments, and I will share the link for the page of Mr. Robert. It is Robert Teaches English. You will enjoy the fantastic explanations for the pronunciation of some difficult English words, some structures. You will find it very, very enjoyable. Okay, so I would like you to visit the page. And again, thank you very much, Mr. Robert.
You got it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I guess I'll see you later.
Yes,
good night,
of course.
Amar, and good night, English students. See you next time.
Good night, Mr. Robert. Good night. Good night.